I want to build on this for a minute, because we were talking the other week before one of the debates about Herman's role in turning around Godfather Pizza, which he was sent into when it was a very troubled company. And the degree to which an enthusiastic, positive, solutions-oriented leader suddenly changes the team. Clist and I are very fortunate to own one share of stock in the Green Bay Packers. And by the way, I want to thank everybody who has given up what every SEC member believes is the national championship game tonight in order to be part of this. But here's a true story about leadership, and I'm going to take it right back to what he just said. The worst team in the history of the Green Bay Packer franchises in 1958. Terrible record, have not won a game, have not had a winning season since 1947. Vince Lombardi arrives in February of 1959 from the worst team in the history of the franchise. 15 players become All-Pro, 7 become Hall of Fame. That's what leadership is. He and I both agree. When I became Speaker in part because I told the truth to the House Republican Party for a decade, and it finally decided it was okay to become a majority. He became a leader at Godfather Pizza because he told him what it would take to really get the company to be successful. We have today a president, and compare him to Ronald Reagan, who told the truth. It's a great book called The Education of Ronald Reagan on lessons he learned at General Electric. And compare Reagan's ability to talk directly to the American people, make sense, and have the American people move the Congress with the current president. This president is about as candid and accurate as Bernie Madoff in what he tells the American people.
So, gentlemen, before we leave the Medicare discussion, defined benefit plan or premium support?
A defined... You go first, Newt.
That's only fair. Look, here's the core problem, and this is frankly also why ultimately the mandate doesn't work. When you get the government in the business of defining for you what you're allowed to have, the government then has to start defining in detail. And I went on a rant, you remember, at the Dartmouth debate, because they had just had a government bureaucratic group say that you didn't need to test PSA for prostate for males. And I'd gotten a note from Andy von Eschenbach, who had been the provost at MD Anderson, the largest cancer center in the world. He'd been the head of the National Cancer Institute. He had been the commissioner of Food and Drug Administration. He is a world-class expert on prostate. And he said, this is such a stupidly ignorant and dangerous decision, because for about 10 or 12% of the people, of males who get prostate, it is a very aggressive, dangerous cancer and will kill them. And he said if they had come back and said it's not a very good test and therefore we ought to have research to get to a better test that allows us more discrimination, that would have been rational. But he said to add insult to injury, the bureaucratic panel of the Obama administration that issued this proposal had nobody who was a urologist and nobody who was a cancer specialist. And there were just a bunch of people who have doctor after the name who are sitting there reading papers, averaging information and saying, well, in our judgment, okay, that is inevitably what happens with a defined benefit plan. What you ultimately want to do is move to a place where we're going to say, we will help people be able to buy insurance. But they should then be able to deal with their doctor and their hospital, and the family, the patient, and the doctor should make the primary decisions, because as you go through dramatic changes in health care, you don't want bureaucracy stopping innovation. I mean, imagine if you had to get bureaucratic approval for an iPhone, or for the next generation BlackBerry, or for the next generation computer. And they decided, well, you know, that 1967 computer is just fine, and it's really cheap now, and we don't really need to go to this new model. I mean, that's what happens when you allow bureaucrats to stop innovation in the name of saving cost. You end up with a much worse system.
Herman Cain, we're going to go ahead. Please take as much time as you need, and we're going to move on to Social Security entitlement.
Very good. I'll make this brief, because in the private sector for decades now, they have been making the transition from defined benefit plans to defined contribution plans. The difference being, the way companies used to do it, they would say, here's our retirement plan, here's the health care plan, here are all of your benefits. They made the conversion to, this account has your name on it, we're going to put some money in it for you, you're going to put some of your own money in there, it's your money. It's back to this whole it's your money thing. And so what the Ryan plan does with that feature of the Medicare account, where it will actually have an individual name on it, it's moving toward a defined contribution plan. And over time, everybody will have their account, because it gets down to ownership of those dollars will cause people to spend it more responsibly. That's the direction that I believe we have to move.
In general